It's my last job to welcome the Premier to the stage, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much, David, and I appreciate the tour earlier and some of the interesting facts you're able to draw to my attention. Can I also acknowledge that we're on the lands of the Boandik people and pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. To you, Paul, as CEO of Timberlink, I've had the chance over the last couple of months to do a lot of openings of various facilities and businesses and the like, and this is the first time I've been to one where there's been a lunch that looks like it's a wedding. So Timberlink's obviously doing all right, which is a great credit to you, mate, and the whole management team, along with the countless people who work at this great business. I do also want to take the opportunity to acknowledge Ian for his work as Paul's predecessor. These are big decisions when companies make investments of this nature, and it's not without a degree of risk, and we need people in our country making those big calls and taking those risks to develop the outcome that we see before us today. To my parliamentary colleagues, particularly the Minister for the sector, Claire. Claire is from this region, obviously herself, and her devotion to the industry is well known to anyone that sits around our cabinet table. It feels like every second meeting she's advocating on your behalf, which is exactly what she should be doing. But I do also want to take the time to acknowledge both Nick and Troy. Nick and Troy are from a different spectrum of the broader body politic we've got in our state. But some of the policies that Claire is now implementing is in no small part because of their advocacy. Troy in particular has been in my ear for a sustained period of time ever since I took on a position of leadership, and his counsel along with Nick's is trusted and valued, and I think it's delivering outcomes, so I thank them for their advocacy. About 18 months ago, I had the chance to travel overseas to Korea and Japan. Amazing countries, big economies, advanced economies, people living in a standard of living that is largely comparable to Australia's. I don't know if I'd choose to live there, but they do things differently, but their standard of living is exceptional. And what's amazing about it is in both instances, they have virtually no natural resources. There are some, there are pockets, but in comparison to what we've got in our state and our country, it's completely different. Yet, having no natural resources, they've been able to develop these economies that deliver for people in a big way, High incomes, like I said, high standard of living. And it makes you think about it, because the way they develop their economies, the way they deliver that standard of living is they essentially buy a lot of raw materials from us, and then they value add and value add and value add and value add. And I got to see firsthand the massive LNG ships lined up in the harbours, particularly this instance was in Korea, massive LNG tankers lined up in the harbours, all coming from Australia. So what we have been able to do with great effect as a country is grow a good economy that delivers a pretty good standard of living by exporting liquefied natural gas, huge volumes of coal, both thermal coal and metallurgical coal. And the other big one throughout the course of the 21st century thus far has been iron ore, mainly hematite iron ore, which requires a huge volume of metallurgical coal or coking coal to turn into steel, and it's also one of the biggest contributors to carbon pollution globally. Now that's all okay. That's all okay. But the question we've got to start asking ourselves as a country, as a state, if we are serious about wanting to leave a better future for our kids and their grandkids, is whether or not that economy is going to sustain us into the second half of this century. And every economist that is actually thinking about things a little bit longer than a 5-year timeline or a 10-year timeline knows the answer to that question is no. because the world isn't going to keep consuming those commodities in the same quantums that has sustained our economy and economic growth up until this point. In fact, the opposite is true. Thermal coal, liquefied natural gas, even hematite iron ore, the forecast for that demand is on the decline. And what the world is looking for a lot more of is magnetite iron ore, copper, both critical minerals that are essential to decarbonisation, but also fibre. And the good thing about each of those three things is that they exist in this state more than any other state within the Commonwealth. So what we've got before us as a state right now is an opportunity that really hasn't come before us in the history of our federation. An opportunity for South Australia to be producing the commodities that set up the global economic growth of the future. But the best thing about each of those, magnetite, copper, and fibre from this industry, is that the economics lends themselves to not just producing them, putting them on a ship and sending it overseas, but rather value adding it here at home before we export it. Which means we can start to do here in South Australia what the Japanese and the Koreans have been doing ever since post-World War II. So there is a unique coalescence coming this state's way where we can take our natural resources, do the value add, and actually do both in this country for the first time basically ever, to propel our standard of living and deliver a better quality of life for the future generations. But it's not just going to come to us. It's actually going to require a bit of policy ambition, a bit of innovation from capital. And that's what's happening so beautifully here in the Green Triangle, really before we've been able to crack the nut in other sectors. And the evidence of it is right next door. A $70 million investment, effectively coming entirely from private capital, but combined with a degree of leadership from government to make sure that we're doing our bit, which is not the bit that the market should be doing. The government should be doing our bit to make sure we're investing in the training, the skills and the research to make sure that that value add continues. That's why this state government is spending $55 million, which is not small beer, on the Forestry Centre for Excellence, on the technical college being built in Mount Gambier and the revitalisation of TAFE. Because our responsibility is to invest in the innovation and research in conjunction with industry to make sure that you can keep doing your work without the fear that the next group of saw doctors isn't coming through. So through that type of partnership, this region can lead, which is why we're so interested in it. Because it's the value add, it's the decarbonisation, and it's the execution of the use of our resources to our advantage to deliver a better standard of living. So this actually matters, and it's really important. So I want to commend everyone that's been invested in this effort up until this point. It's worthy of a celebration that looks like a wedding, and I sincerely hope that the future of Timberlink continues to grow in South Australia, not just for the benefit of our state, but quite frankly for the rest of the country, because, my words, we need it. Thanks a lot. And on that note, sorry, I almost forgot. On that note, under authority invested in me, I would like now to pronounce this facility officially open. Cheers. There we go.